recognized as a church by the Unitarian Association. And I thought it would be fun to talk about why we do this. What is church? And so on my Facebook page, which if you're not my friend on Facebook, just friend me. I friend everybody. Unless you don't have a picture, then I don't friend you because it looks weird. I put on my Facebook page, when do you have a moment when you feel like, yes, this is church? And I got so many lovely replies from all over the country. It was wonderful. And I thought you might like to hear from our assistant ministers and from me about what it is inside us that says, yeah, this is church. When does that happen for your ministry team? So I've asked Reverend Madi to go first, and then Chris, who will be Reverend Chris after February 22nd's ordination ceremony. And then Reverend Meg will finish it up.
If you're in the first rows, you might not see much of me because I don't have my box, but bear with me. I got to sit through the first service and be followed by Chris and Meg, and I mean, I'm so honored to be in such company. And I kept thinking, sitting there listening to them, yes, me too. That's when, and that's how, and yes. And I thought, well, why didn't I put that in my, there's so many times that I experienced church, and just know that and you will too, not along. Yes, that's it. It's there too. So this is what I was thinking and what was on my heart when I wrote this. And I reflected and I thought, it tends to get harder. At least it has for me. To feel like I've been to church, not just, I've been to church, but no, church, like a church. Since I began my journey that has brought me into this ministry. So I don't know if you're the same way, but the more that I know about the inner workings, the guy behind the curtain, so to speak, of something, the less I allow myself to just relax, calm down, and experience the magic of it. I grew up, for example, doing community theater. Most aren't surprised by this, of my acting background, because I'm such a huge ham. But my first production was Annie, and I was age 7, and I just boom, 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 several productions every year up until 1999 was my most recent production, where I did a very weird experimental adaptation of Peter Handke's They Are Dying Out at ACC. So after years of acting classes and having tried every genre of theater, loads of experience backstage, and 2 years as a theater arts major at ACC, I had a hard time merely relaxing as an audience member when I'd go to see a production. I would scrutinize every choice made by every actor, question the director's decisions about everything, roll my eyes at sloppy scene changes. I was a bona fide theater snob. And I've spent years in recovery for this affliction, but it creeps back up on me when I least expect it, and I don't like it. So I left the world of acting false personas for ministry, the profession where you get paid to be your truest self possible. Rosemary Bray McNatt, a mentor of mine who just became president of Star King School for the Ministry, one of 2 UU seminaries, this one's in Berkeley, she told me early on in my formation that the most important thing to remember as a minister is to be authentic. Keep it real, she said. They'll know it the minute you fake it. But whether acting or being deeply authentic, showing up and doing so in front of hundreds of people, though magnificent, is exhausting work when you're doing it right. It's easy for me to feel deeply connected to a sermon when I'm writing it and preaching it with my whole heart and still feel like I haven't gone to church. that week. It may feel like I've gone to work, but it doesn't always feel like church. So what makes it happen? What makes that magic happen? It's hard to pin down. For me, when church happens is when I feel a transformative change and a real deep connection with others. This is the case both when I'm leading a service and when I'm preaching. And when I'm participating in worship. It may be a brief moment. It may last an hour. But I know it when I feel it, and I'm sure you do too. It humbles me into an awareness of my relationship with others, with all of you who I love so much, with my world, with my universe. It strengthens me when it reminds me that others depend on me as well. Sometimes the music does this, often here. And, whether it's a beautiful or lively performance or an emotion evoked through communal hymn singing, sometimes I'm singing with you all, and I get a big lump and goosebumps, and it's hard to continue, but I have to because it's there. It's there. I'm in church. Sometimes it happens through spoken or silent prayer. Sometimes I feel church when I see someone move to tears, laughing or nodding along during my sermon or my story for all ages. And sometimes I feel church even before worship begins or after it ends, when I see someone who I care about and I know cares about me, and we exchange an understanding hug. This is what church feels like. This is where that magic resides. And this is why church can't happen without its people. And as I was writing this, I remembered what I learned as a preschooler. Here's the church. Here's the steeple. Open up the doors, and there are the people. It's you guys. Thank you.
Having vacation school, Bible school flashbacks, Monty, from that steeple thing. Martin Luther King once said, "Occasionally in life there are those moments of unutterable fulfillment which cannot be completely explained by those symbols called words. Their meanings can only be articulated by the inaudible language of the heart." And of course, Dr. King also brought into the popular lexicon the term beloved community. And for me, the religious or church happens when the two meet, those experiences of unutterable fulfillment that Dr. King described, and the creation of beloved community, the bringing of justice, compassion, and love into our world. A couple of years ago, my spouse, Wayne, and I joined a group of folks from our local Unitarian Universalist churches to support a large rally that was being held on the steps of the Texas state capitol. The rally was protesting the atrocious attacks on the rights of women that were occurring here in Texas, as well as across our country. We all showed up in our bright yellow t-shirts bearing the Unitarian Universalist Standing on the Side of Love public advocacy motto and gathered round our large yellow Standing on the Side of Love banner. The women's rights groups that had put the rally together just absolutely loved it, so they put us on the steps right behind the speakers for the rally. Now, the event drew this huge crowd, and near the end of it, we noticed that all 8 of us holding up the banner at the women's rights rally were men. Now, being Unitarian Universalists, that didn't seem like such a big deal, so we just kind of had a laugh about it. As I was returning to my car, though, this woman who I had never met touched me on the shoulder. I turned to her, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she spoke to me with this slight accent that I recognized as small-town Texas, since that's where I'm from also. And she said, "I just wanted you to know how moving it was to me to see a group of all men holding up your banner. And then she turned back and looked at me and said, you know, I don't think of myself as very religious, but I'm going to have to get to know more about you folks. After that, I guess we were both stunned by something sacred that was occurring between us, because neither one of us said anything for a while. We simply stood there. I don't remember which of us broke the silence or what was said next, but I remember she eventually asked me where she could get one of our bright yellow t-shirts, so I gave her some information on our churches and the web address for Standing on the Side of Love. I don't even remember if we ever even told each other our names. I'll tell you though, I have never been happier to call myself a Unitarian Universalist than I was in that moment. I have never been more grateful to be reminded that the religious can happen anywhere and in any moment, and that we are called to be present to it. Those moments of unutterable fulfillment and beloved community are inseparably linked, and for me, that's what church is. It's what helps us bring them together in ways that are intentional, that are explicit, whether it's here in worship, joining our voices together in song, fellowship around a shared meal, sometimes attending one of our theater events or a public art event or one of our forums, going to a religious education class, acting together for service and justice, just being with each other during life's transitions. Sometimes they come together with just a smile in a church hallway or a shared cup of coffee in Housen Hall. That is all of it religious. That's church. Today, we celebrate that for 60 plus years, First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin has been generating that sense of beloved community through opening up such possibilities for those moments of unutterable fulfillment to occur. What an amazing blessing we have inherited. What a sacred responsibility for its careful stewardship we bear. What an awe-inspiring privilege to gather in community, to nourish souls, transform lives, and do justice. May it be so for 60 and many, many more years beyond that.
I want you all to mark this time in this church's history as we turn 60. You're going to look back on it and say, man, that was a golden age of this church when we had Brent Baldwin and Marisol Caballero and Chris Jimmerson and Meg Barnhouse. And so I think we're in a lucky and blessed time. So what feels like church to me? I feel it so often. I remember one time there was this kid in South Carolina who was 15 maybe, tall, skinny, really shy, long hair. He always wore a Bowie t-shirt, vintage, or a Marilyn Manson t-shirt, and he always had his fingernails painted black. And he didn't really say very much. We used to have a jam night at the church, and he would come with his electric guitar and with his dad, who played mandolin. And we would take turns starting a song, and then everybody else would join in. And so it came his turn, and he just went, I'll pass. And his dad said, no, come on, Oscar, play that Pink Floyd thing you were working on. And so he started the opening riff to Wish You Were Here. It goes, goes, nah, never mind. I think we sapped all his strength with too much folk music. And his dad's friend in his 40s somewhere said, no, come on, Owen, I'll play it with you. And he took his fiddle, and he went, and then his dad took the mandolin and was like, and so they all got it going, and we jumped in to start singing. So you think you can tell? And Owen's like, Oscar's like, oh, no. We jumped in at the wrong place. So we started again, and Oscar's like, now. Heaven from hell, heartbreak from pain. And I thought, oh, this is church. I love this. This shy 15-year-old kid gets encouraged by old hippies on the mandolin and the violin to play Pink Floyd. Wish you were here. I felt like that at the Princeton church. Kaya had written a musical about pirates, and she had cast it with members of the church. And so there were a good number of pirates, and they were all remedial pirates on this remedial pirate ship. So they weren't really good pirates. But some of them were 9, 10, 11 years old, and some of the pirates were in their 80s and everything in between. And I had that feeling when in the hall, one of the 9-year-old pirates low-fived one of the 80-year-old pirates about a month after the show. And they were like, hey, Grim, hey, Tugger, calling each other their pirate names. I just thought, man, where does that happen? They got to be friends. Here, I feel it all the time. One of my favorite parts of the service is watching you light candles. And I think behind every light is a story. There's a hope, there's a sorrow, there's a prayer, there's a wish. I have the privilege of getting to know people at a depth that many people don't, and being invited into people's lives during times of ordinariness and times of great joy and great sorrow. And I think, boy, just pick anybody at random and say, tell me what your life is like. And you'll hear something amazing, staggering. I wonder how some people are still walking around with the stories that you carry with you. And yet, we each have a light, our little light in here, and we each keep it shining bravely from time to time, stumbling, and then getting up again and keeping it shining bravely again. And we bring our lights together here in this place, and sometimes I catch a glimpse of the lights all coming together. Sometimes when I'm talking to you and I've spent thought and heart trying to tell the truth as I know it, as flat out and authentically as I can tell it to you, trying to be as honest as I possibly can be with you, because anything else is a waste of time. There's a moment most Sundays when I see all the lights kind of come together as one, and we're all here together. We're experiencing something together, communicating with one another. I can't tell you how much that means to me. I see it during the baby parade at Easter, when we hold the new lives in our midst and walk them around so we can all just adore them There's absolutely no other point to a baby parade. Someone said, well, what is your theological backing for the baby parade? And I would say, well, as Mary Jane Ford read this morning, sometimes it's best to just trust the enraptured heart. So when we think about having church, we're talking about a moment of the enraptured heart, or a moment of the ring of truth in your mind, or a moment of just seeing one another's beautiful faces and knowing that we're not out in space all by ourselves. We're here. We're here, and if we can't talk, we can at least drink coffee together and go, We're here. So I thank you, and I'm most grateful to you for being here.